president of the Rowlett Chamber of Commerce. We are very fortunate as a city to have somebody like Michael Gallup's in charge of our Chamber of Commerce. So, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor, for letting us use your facility tonight. It is very much appreciated. We wouldn't want to try to crowd all of you into the chamber. It'd be a little tight in there. But I want to thank you guys for coming out. I want to thank Drew Rist. Tonight, I'm going to say that at the beginning. I want to thank Drew Rist for videoing this. It'll be on Facebook Live. So if you're watching on Facebook Live, hi. That'll also be available in a couple of days. We'll have a YouTube link, and we'll put that on the chamber page, and I believe they put it on the city page. So I want to thank our candidates. We're going to have our candidates come up and have a seat up here. Our moderator tonight is Cindy Burkett, and she's going to be questions and stuff tonight. We're going to have a little bit different format because we only have the two candidates. We're going to give them some time to introduce themselves, and then once the questions start, the first candidate to get the question will have 2 minutes to answer. The other candidate will have 1 minute to rebut that or respond to the question, whichever they choose. And then if the first candidate wants, they get an additional 30 seconds, and the second candidate gets an additional 30 seconds. So it could be about 4 minutes or so per question, and then the next question will go to the other person, and we'll go back and forth that way. So, last week, that little pathetic sound last week was kind of sad. So we're hoping that tonight is a little bit. Wait, hang on. So that's what they're going to get here tonight, and that will continue until they stop talking or Todd turns their microphone off. So hopefully that'll make it a little bit better, and you'll be able to hear whenever it's done. I think that was a lot of it, is the candidates couldn't actually hear the. I want to thank the chair of the chamber board, Chris, for being here, and his wife, Tina, and Todd for back here running our sound and everything. So this time I will turn it over to Cindy, and if the candidates come up here and have a seat. Thanks.
Here he comes. Well, thank you, Michael. I am excited to be here tonight. I told Michael last week that it was really fun being on this side of the questions instead of that side. So I enjoyed it. And we're going to start with both of our candidates giving us a description or just a 3-minute introduction. If you want that long, you don't have to take it all. And we were going to flip a coin, but Robert has graciously allowed Tammy to go first. When we're asking the questions, just so you guys will know and so y'all will know, these are questions that came in via Facebook and email messages to the chamber, so nobody in the chamber made them up. I didn't make them up, though I may throw a couple in just for fun. But I'm really excited to hear y'all tonight. And Tammy, if you go ahead and you start.
Thank you very much, and I expect you back on this side someday, Cindy, so you're a great rep. So my name's Tammy Dana Bashan. Very happy to be here. Thanks to the chamber for hosting, and thanks for Cindy for moderating. I've been your mayor since August of 2017. I've been on city council since May of 2013, running up on 6 years. I'm a 17-year resident of Rowlett. My husband and I decided to raise our 2 boys here. Wonderful, wonderful community to raise our children. Couldn't have been more happy about that. Both of our boys are grown adults, and they're both in college now. I am a certified public accountant by profession, and I currently run a small business here in Rowlett called Seniors Helping Seniors. It is a home care business for seniors that need a little bit of extra help to be independent in their home, and I hire senior citizens to take care of them. I have over 37 years of business and operational excellence experience, which is very, very important in my role as mayor. I have 6 years of city council experience, 8+ years of civic involvement, lots of community involvement in my church, in the Garland Independent School District, in PTAs and Boy Scouts. So have just been a community volunteer my whole time that I've been here in Rowlett. You know, in this day and age when we see a lot of corruption throughout our nation and our state and even in our local cities, it's very disheartening for me because I do this for one reason, and I do this because of servant leadership. It is very, very, very important to me that you have someone with high integrity and a moral compass in this position. You got to be able to trust the mayor that we're representing the city in the best light, and I believe I do that. Leadership is the most important quality, I believe, in being mayor. You can't do anything on your own as being a mayor. You have to make sure you solicit support throughout the city, throughout your city council, throughout city staff. I lead in an inclusive manner. I have the support and respect of my city council. I have the support and respect of the city staff. I've built incredible relationships throughout this community, not just with the residents, who are the most important part of my relationship building, but with our business partners, our community partners, our nonprofits, our business leaders have great relationships. I have great relationships throughout our region. And again, that is very, very important representing your city, the City of Rowlett, and I hope to have your support as your next mayor or your continued mayor. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Robert Van Bloemendaal. It's a long name. It's probably the longest name on the ballot, but you can call me Robert. Just don't forget there's two B's in Robert. I have been, my name is Dutch. My parents were Dutch. I was born in Australia, so I have this accent, and I met this girl over here in Hawaii, and she brought me to Dallas, and I've lived here for 27 years. I've also become a citizen in April of 2007. I purchased a failing travel agency, built it up to a family of over 80 agents and independent contractors and staff. I purchased 5 additional agencies and had 3 branches. After 18 years with sales in excess of $15 million, I sold the business. I was invited to serve on the board of directors for Keep Rowlett Beautiful because I wanted to do something to keep our city clean and nice. I was a member, ambassador, elected chairman of the ambassadors, and invited to be a board member of the Rowlett Chamber of Commerce. I graduated from the Best Leadership Class 19 in 2009, Citizens Fire Academy, Citizen Police Academy, and CERT. And I'm president of the Rowlett Lions Club. On 3 separate occasions, I participated in the Relay for Life and raised over $1,000 in each occasion. I volunteer for Meals on Wheels. I helped build the New Kids Kingdom and assisted during the aftermath of the Rowlett tornado. I also assisted by going to Canton after their tornado, as well as helping the Red Cross for the Houston hurricane. I have been an ardent supporter of this community, have been elected twice to the City Council, and would now like to step up and serve the community, citizens, and businesses as mayor for this city. I have a conservative fiscal management focus in enhancing equality economic development in Rowlett while being mindful of the needs and desires of the citizens of Rowlett, while restoring Rowlett's reputation. My desire is to build a wider relationship with the citizens of Rowlett so that we can work together to make Rowlett better. I'm against apartments in our city, the growth of apartments in our city. I believe there should be more transparency, not just in fiscal issues. The city needs to be trying to resolve the lawsuits facing our city. All aspects of Bayside need to be given to the citizens. Streamlining our building permits and planning processes for homeowners and builders. Increase in taxes that we had, 10 seconds is up. I pledge to be your open, available mayor, and for this community, our city council should reflect all the voices. Sounds like make a connection.
Yeah. All right, Michael, you can hear it, but it's really obnoxious, I have to say. Yes. Okay, thank y'all both. I'm going to start, since you mentioned taxes, I think I heard that from Robert, and I'm not sure if Tammy mentioned or not, but I wanted to ask your opinion on the legislature. Imagine me bringing that up. Currently, they're pushing to cap our property taxes at 2.5%. Down in Austin. And for those that don't know, right now you're capped at 8% increases that can happen every year. If that were to pass, how do you propose to make up for the estimated $1.8 million loss to the City of Rowlett? And we'll let Robert, we're going back and forth, right? Robert, I'm going to have you do it first, if you don't mind.
As I said before, if we're not certain that this cap or this 2.5% will actually happen, and if it does, I think rather than affect the citizens, we have a huge development going on down at Bayside, and that development will bring in $10 million annually. So that should, by all means, cover what we have, plus any other new developments that come into Rowlett.
Okay. Tammy, same for you.
Well, the Senate passed today a version of 3.5%, and the House is supposed to consider this on Wednesday. I am against a 2.5% cap. I haven't calculated what the effect of a 3.5% cap, but 2.5% cap would have resulted in $1.8 million less revenue for us last year, and over the last 4 years, it would have been $4.4 million less. That's a significant impact on our community. That will affect us across the board on public safety, on deferred maintenance, on ability to fund bond programs. Yes, we have an issue with property taxes in this state, no doubt about it. But putting this on the back of cities and counties that were the reason for the property tax issue is not fair and it's not accurate. The state of Texas historically funded half of the funding and the other half came from property taxes. Their funding percentage is down to 36% prior to this legislative session. Now they've passed House Bill 3, which would bring it up to just over 40%, but it's still a huge problem, and it's very, very important that we understand as citizens the impact of this to our community.
Thank you, Michael.
And I got whatever that's going to be called. We need a name for that.
We will. And did you want to reply? Yeah, I'm going to, on some of these questions.
The only thing I would like to say is we're not certain whether this is going to happen at all. So we need to wait and see what happens. And is there anything that we can actually do about it? I mean, I don't believe there is anything that we as citizens here in Rowlett can do about it.
Okay, so I get 30 seconds on that one. No.
Am I doing this right, Michael? Okay, go ahead.
No, we shouldn't just sit back and wait and see if this happens. This is going to happen. Our leaders have said this is going to happen. This has support in the House and this has support in the Senate. And there are things we can do about this. We can educate our public. We can educate our legislators. And we have been doing that. I have met with every single one of our legislators personally. I am in constant communication with them and making sure they understand all the ramifications of this, making sure that you are represented as citizens because this is going to impact your everyday life.
Okay, thank you. There it goes, Robert. All right, well, and as long as you mentioned, I think Tammy mentioned the bonds. Let me get my question here. Okay, Tammy is first, I believe, this time. Are you in favor of continuing to bundle bond items which might otherwise be seen as unrelated? For example, the public safety package that included funds to research a new municipal complex.
So this question was brought up in this chamber forum for city council representatives. I just want to make sure there's a couple things that are clarified. One, it was talked about $500,000. It was $300,000. It's not $500,000. And the other thing, it's not just for a facility assessment. It also includes schematics and lots of detail work related to that. Bundling has a bad connotation. Nobody was trying to hide anything. You don't put a $300,000 item on a bond standalone. We had three categories. We had public safety, we had infrastructure, and we had parks. It could have gone in infrastructure, it could have gone in public safety. It was insignificant amount compared to either of those two categories, and actually putting it in infrastructure would have bundled it even more because the infrastructure amount was much, much higher than the public safety amount. So it was more highlighted by putting it in the public safety amount. The bottom line is we need to do a facilities assessment because we may not have a new municipal complex in the very near future, but we have to plan. We have to make sure we know what our needs are for a police station. We have outgrown our police station. We need to make sure we know what our needs are for our public works department. The heart and soul of our infrastructure for our city. We have outgrown our public works department. Our city hall is falling apart. Go visit City Hall and look at the structure of that building. It is falling apart. So we may or may not have a municipal complex as a result of this all at one time. We have to put that to the voters for them to decide. But there are going to be things. We need a new animal shelter. There are going to be things that we're going to need to do, and we need a plan in place so we know how to do that. So if we do this over a period of time, we're not making bad decisions, that we're making decisions for the overall plan. So that's how I feel about that.
Okay. Robert?
Well, to a certain degree, I agree with Tammy, but I don't want things bundled. I would make sure that the citizens appreciate that these things need to be done together and that there's no hidden object or hidden agenda for each of these things on the agenda. So yes, I do approve of it, but I don't want things bundled in there that are not related.
Did you want to respond at all to that, Tammy?
It was related. It was in the public safety category, and many of our facility assessments relate to public safety. So again, it could have been bundled in infrastructure, it could have been related to that, it could have been bundled in public safety, it could be related to that. So I do not believe it was bundled. We were very, very transparent in what that money was for and how much that money was and what the allocation was for.
Okay, good. Next. Okay, Robert, kind of along the same thought process, how do you propose to fund infrastructure adequately when you have stated that you want to reduce the city's debt? And how would you go about doing that?
Well, the infrastructure is basically paid for by bonds and things that we vote for bonds, basically, and so that depending on what the nature of the requirements that we have, we should select a bond to do that. For example, we've done major work on streets and alleys, and we can keep on doing that because it's what we need to do to make it better for all our citizens. The only thing I'm questioning is we're making these repairs on panel repairs on Delrock Road and Rowlett Road, but then I see streets, and those streets are not that bad, but I see streets that I don't even want to take my car down, so I would rather have the money spent on them than Delrock Road.
Tammy?
Well, I think the question was, how are you going to fund infrastructure if you don't take on debt?
Right.
So I didn't hear an answer to that, but I will say, in regards to repairs versus capital, reconstruction, $1 spent today saves $8 in the future. So you have to do both. You have to fund maintenance. You have to do those panel replacements. That is much more cost effective in keeping those roads in a good condition, because if they get past a certain condition, then you're in total reconstruction and it's 8 times more expensive. So you have to have a program to fund current maintenance, and you have to have a program to fund capital improvements. And we're doing both, and you can't put $1 of maintenance towards a road that needs $8 of capital improvements. You have to be able to do both.
Okay, thank you. Okay, earlier you had mentioned, I can't remember which one said it in their open comments, is something about the animal shelter. So with the rapid growth of the population of Rowlett, what would be your recommendations for expanding the animal shelter, which can currently only hold 24 dogs and 30 cats maximum? Have you ever visited the animal shelter? And I'm sorry, I cannot remember who went first last time.
I think Robert went first.
Okay, Tammy.
You brought up the animal shelter.
Well, we'll let her start.
So
Thank you, Robert.
there was a question asked at the Democratic Forum, what would you do with $1 million? And then it became $10 million. I would love to have a new animal shelter. The question becomes, do you put the money into an animal shelter, or do you put the money into an alley, or do you put the money into underground utilities? So we're constantly trying to balance that. Yes, I've visited the animal shelter. I visit the animal shelter regularly. My cat is from the animal shelter. I think they do an incredible job, and I think we're doing them a disservice by not providing them better facilities. And we got to find a way to do that. And I think that, the facility assessment is one step in that, but we got to decide, where to put those dollars when we have limited dollars.
Robert?
I am totally in agreement about having to replace or build or make bigger the animal shelter. It's just a matter of how, when, what, and why, and we can do this. I have visited the animal shelter, and I don't like going there because I hate the thought of having to walk out with another animal, and I probably would. So, yes, it's a wonderful place, but not. We need to expand it, and I'm not sure, but I have the idea that it may be part of the new municipal centre. Maybe not.
Okay. Well, let me follow. I'm sorry, Tammy, did you want to respond at all to that? Okay. And we'll start with Robert this time. Along with that thought of animals, are you in favor of the new catch and release program for feral cats?
No. Because, I'm sorry, catch and release, catch means that you catch them, then you operate on them, make them sterile so they can't breed, and then you just put them back where they came from, and then they could last for another 10 years there, and you would still have the same problem around your house. There are places where you can take some of these cats. They can be adopted if they are nice cats. Other places they can take and become barn cats. I've had a few in my house that I have adopted out and put into barnyards, and that's a possibility too. But just to keep them and bringing them back, I've had 14 around my house, and to bring 14 more back to my house and probably feed them would be not good.
So I absolutely am in favor of the catch, neuter, and release program. I supported it very strongly when it came before council. When this idea was brought to me when I wasn't even a mayor yet, I really pushed the idea and encouraged it to be brought to council. It is a proven method to reduce the feral population and to do it in a humane way. Alternatives are often to euthanize our cats, and this is a way that treats them very respectfully, reduces the population, is proven to reduce the population over time. So absolutely in favor of that program, and we are implementing that program in the City of Rowlett, and we are having an incredible amount of success, and there's many, many surrounding communities that have that same program that have proven success with that program.
Anything else? Okay. All right. Well, let's stay with city facilities and staffing. Is kind of the subject matter we're on right now. And are you happy with the current? Tammy is first this time, I think. Are you happy with the current level of public safety officers in Rowlett? If not, what is your proposal to improve it?
They've done an incredible job with the resources they have, and you know their response times are still under 5 minutes, and the response times from the 911 operators are incredible, and they've done that despite the staffing levels that they're currently operating under. So that says a lot for our ability to manage the public safety in our community. We just increased our police officers by a head count of 2, and we increased our firefighters by a head count of 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly what it was, which one of those two. And that was, you know, the benefit of a grant that we received, over $2 million grant that can fund those firefighters over the next, partially over the next couple of years. We've got to get more resources to our police officers. And I've asked our city manager to have this as one of our main agenda items in our strategic planning session this summer, because we've got to, the time has come, we've got to increase that head count.
Robert?
Sorry, not being on the council, I wasn't aware of all this, but yes, I am firmly in favour of supporting our police and fire and EMTs. It's something we can't live without in our community. So 5 minutes, 4 minutes would be better if we had more staff. I would like to do whatever we can do, following on with what Tammy said.
Okay, this question is from, sorry, Tammy, go
I
ahead.
get 30.
Yes, sorry.
You don't have to be on city council to have that information. Everything I just discussed, other than asking the city manager to put it on our strategic planning agenda, all of that is very public information that we have disclosed many, many times.
Robert, anything? Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this question is from me. I don't know if you noticed that this was posted on the Rowlett Police Facebook, but our DA has currently let out some suggestions, or I guess processes they're going to follow in the next, under his particular leadership. And one of those things was in the case of theft under the cost of $750, they would not prosecute. I envision that as all kinds of problems, but I'm thinking in particular, how do you think that's going to affect our police, their response, and what that does as far as what their ability is to handle those issues where there might be a theft under that amount?
I don't remember.
I saw that article. I'm totally against it. I don't know why he brought that sort of situation up. Doesn't mean we can't do it here in Rowlett. I mean, just because it's in the county of Dallas, I mean, we can still prosecute them here in Rowlett. Yes, I mean, somebody can just go and help themselves and say it's for my livelihood, it's for my freedom, it's for my something that I need to live with. But store people are going to go crazy when this happens.
Tim?
Well, and it doesn't even matter if it's for your livelihood or not. It's just based on a dollar amount. I am not in support of that new policy that he released. Very, very worried about that. And our police have already issued a statement that they will continue to arrest individuals for theft under that amount. So we've taken a stance as a city. We got to see what else we can possibly do to influence that. And that's a relatively new statement, so we haven't had time to discuss that. But I am absolutely not in favor of that policy.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. On to talking about our city facilities and our staffing. What city services and departments do you view as absolutely essential and why? And I think that, yeah.
Yeah, you know, this is a pretty easy question. Public safety and emergency response is number one. It absolutely is the key service that you must provide as a city. But shortly followed by public works, because they really keep the city running. They keep the streets, they keep the underground utilities. Any municipality would be a disaster if we didn't have sufficient public works services. So I would say public safety, emergency response, and public works.
Okay. Robert?
By all means, police. I want the police to come when I have a situation. I want the fire to come when I have a situation. Plus, I want to be able to have drinking water. I want to be able to my toilet to flush when I need it to. So those are the very important things to do. So I'm all for that as well.
Okay. And if anybody from the city's out there, I did not put this question together. So the city has a reputation for being difficult to work with when developing or remodeling things occur in Rowlett. As a council member or mayor, setting policy in this regard can be a balancing act. How, as mayor, have you been addressing that, or would you address that? And Robert, I think you're first.
Could you say that one?
Yes, I will. The city has a reputation for being difficult to work with when developing or remodeling in the city of Rowlett. As a council member or mayor, setting policy in this regard can be a balancing act. How, as mayor, would you address this issue?
I think every situation is different. Every situation is an individual, but we have to make it more adaptable so that people can make and do developments in our city, even just for personal or a household or businesses, because I'm sure that businesses have not built in Rowlett because of the rules and regulations that we have. I mean, for example, I know the buildings going up and down PGPT, near PGPT opposite Target, they put out all these barrels on the street to do their work. And then all of a sudden they had to bring them in because they didn't have a permit to do it. And that permit will cost you $5,000. And so it was a very difficult situation. We need to make it easier on people. We need to make it simple so that you can do some work around your house if you want to without having to get permission.
So every developer will say that cities are difficult to work with, and I'm not saying we're perfect, but it is a sentiment that is, you know, throughout government and throughout the municipal work. What's really important here is that we have the appropriate staff and adequate staff to manage development. And we have an incredible amount of development going on in the city of Rowlett, and we have an incredible amount of development going on in North Texas. We have a new director of development services, community services, and her name is Manol Maladad. And she has recognized some key areas of efficiencies that she thinks she can put in place throughout her department that will help make this process more efficient and more effective. And that's where you need to focus. You need to focus on what the procedures are and the personnel are, and that they can recognize the issues and that they can work to solve those.
Robert, anything? Okay. Tammy, and along that same line, when a rezoning request comes before you, what specific considerations will you give to ensure the city upholds its standards as it relates to form-based code and the comprehensive plan? This may be a little bit of a bounce on that other question, but what do you look for when you're somebody's looking for a rezoning request?
You know, rezoning requests are the hardest thing that come before council. And there's lots of considerations that we need to make. First and foremost, we need to understand how the public feels about it. And we're very, very careful to understand that. We look at all of the information that the public responds to. We pay very close attention to public comments. If it's a public hearing, we pay very, very close attention to that. We also, I am very keen on understanding what our Planning and Zoning Commission has done prior to it coming to council. We have incredible people on our Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm very, very excited about our current commission. They do a great, great job. And they look at the technical side of this. So I rely very heavily on what their recommendations are. In fact, I have been pushing for, and we're going to be considering in the very near future, I think Tuesday, that if the Planning and Zoning turns down a rezoning request, that we're going to require a supermajority for council. That's my opinion. I will be voting for that because I think we need to put trust and reliance on our Planning and Zoning Commission because they have the expertise. We have given them the job to look at those zoning requests as they relate to the specifics of our code and everything. So, you know, council just overriding their rejections, I think, is very problematic because at the council level, politics can enter into it. I also consider, you know, there's about 10 different factors that you need to consider that are part of our form-based code, so you have to look at those very, very carefully. And most importantly, we have to look at the comprehensive plan because that lays out a foundation of what we want to do with our land use going forward. Robert.
I believe that the staff have a great input, and between the staff and the P&Z, they come up with a plan which abides by all the rules and regulations that we have in the city. When it comes to the council has the freedom to make or break or change the thing, whatever they want to do, depending on the input from the citizens and whatever. So it relies on what the staff, P&Z, and the council say, whether we get anything changed or not.
Okay, and Robert, just to follow up, so since you've been on the city council before, so is there anything specific you look for when you've got a rezoning request that comes up?
Whether it abides by the rules of the city, whether we have items in place to say yes or no that we don't want to do this.
Okay, thank you. Let's look at something else. Do you believe that housing prices have Do you believe that housing prices have outpaced the middle class ability to afford safe, sanitary housing in Rowlett? If so, would you support the development of attainable housing for the working middle class if it meant additional multifamily developments? And Robert, I think you're first on this one.
I would support any working class families, because we do have people that work in our city and in Walmart and all the other stores and places, and they need a place to live. So they can't afford to live in the $200,000 to $300,000 houses that we have, or even the apartments that are $2,000 a month. So we have to find a way to make housing more affordable for these people. And I would try to do, we have a housing finance corporation, and they are able to do much more things that we were able to do in the past, and we would follow their guidance.
Okay. Tammy?
So the average home price in Rowlett is about $198,000, not about, it is $198,000, and that's gone up significantly over the last 5 years. So in many respects, you know, the cost of housing is outpacing the working class. We have much less of an issue in our community than they have like in Frisco and Plano and Allen, and we have much less of an issue in our community than they have in many big cities and many suburbs of big cities. However, it is a problem. We do not have adequate housing for our workforce that is here in Rowlett. I have been on record, and I will continue to be on record, that I would support workforce housing because I think it's very, very important that we have a variety of housing to meet the needs from cradle to grave for all of our community, not just for those that can afford, you know, more expensive homes.
Okay, thank you. And then, Robert, this is kind of follow-up to that, but it was a question that was specifically for you that came in. It says, on Facebook, you state that you're opposed to all apartments, but in the Democrat debate this past weekend, you stated you were open to affordable housing. Could you please clarify that position?
Affordable housing does not necessarily mean apartments. I'm against further apartments because I would like to first do a return on investment to see whether all the apartments, the 6,000 apartments we have in the city, will all sell. We'll all be able to afford it to the citizens. I don't believe there are, because even now with some of them, they are having specials, and there is some of them say that free rent, and they have boards out the front. And I don't believe that with all the apartments we have, we will be able to fill them easily. So I would like to find a way that we can do affordable housing.
Okay. And Tammy, that was really just specifically for Robert, but did you have any kind of response to that?
I guess the only thing I would add is that, Robert did say that we have an HFC in town, Housing Finance Corp., and that we need to follow their lead. And it is the position of the Housing Finance Corp. that we need affordable workforce housing in this community. So I'm a little confused by the answer.
Okay. Okay. See, and I think, Tammy, this is you this time. If the right development were to come along for the North Shore area of Rowlett, would you be in favor of another TRIZ for that area? And if you could, for those sitting in the audience, maybe explain what a TRIZ is.
So TERS, Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone. We have a TERS in our Bayside development. We have a TERS in our downtown development. Both of those are 20-year TERS. You can do up to a 30-year TERS. Both the Bayside one and the downtown one is a 20-year TERS. And that's a mechanism to help with economic development, in that you can allocate specific property taxes that are generated within that TERS development as an incentive for development costs within that region. And so we've done that to a 50% extent at Bayside, and we've done that to a 50% extent at downtown. We have limited tools in our toolbox in order to provide economic incentives, and our North Shore is so critical to our future employment for this community. The number one goal of our North Shore is to provide a place to live, work, and play. And in order to attract the right type of employment center up there, we're going to have some types of incentives. And I would be in support of developing a TERS investment zone, and be able to provide some of the incremental taxes generated in that zone to provide the cost for development for that area.
Robert?
I would support a TERS too, but I would first want to wait and see what comes along. I mean, we waited until Bayside came along. It was established before we did the TERS. I would like to see what we can get into the North Zone before we go ahead and do anything. We can't do anything before we know who's going to come there. It could be a school, or it could be a huge factory, or whatever. So whatever they need, or whatever we need to put in place there, let's wait until we get the people there first.
Okay. Tammy?
Again, you don't wait until somebody comes to you. You go market a key area in your community, and we are doing that with the North Shore. We have a very comprehensive marketing plan and target industries that we're targeting, and we're talking to brokers constantly about the opportunities in that area, and we are developing mechanisms to try to help fund what would need to be funded in that area in order to bring that employment center to our community. It is a long-term project, but we are working hard.
Robert, you look like you're posed to say something.
We didn't have a TERS before Bayside either, so it can come afterwards.
Okay, well, you brought up Bayside twice now, Robert, so now I'm going to go to my Bayside questions here. This one is specifically for you that came in, but Tammy, I'm sure you want to address it as well. Robert, you have downplayed your previous experience on council as it relates to the Bayside project and the role you specifically had in its approval. Can you please talk more about your involvement in the original decision? And are you currently critical of the city's Bayside vision? And if so, well, what alternative do you propose for the South Peninsula? That's a lot, I'm sorry. Break it down.
Yes, I approved of the decision for Bayside. And if they could build the same thing that we approved way back then, I would be very, very, very happy. I'm very disappointed in what has happened at the moment, because in the bond that was produced, they were supposed to have quarterly meetings with the council, and they were supposed to start building in 2017, yet nothing has happened since on the south side. Disappointed in that. We heard nothing about it. All we heard was we saw the apartments fly up. The next piece we heard was the news report when we were going to sue the city, sue Bayside. And then the next piece of news we had was the town hall meeting. And those are the only things that we heard about the thing. How many people here actually know what is going on and what has happened at Bayside? Apart from those three things, there's not much else. Thank you.
Tim?
So I'm not sure if I should address his comments or address the question, but I think everybody knows where I stand on Bayside, so I'll address his comments.
I've got a question that kind of is geared towards you, which might kind of go together, if you want me to go with that one.
Okay, I'll wait.
And I think they'll go together, and Robert,
Go ahead
if you
and
don't
ask,
mind.
and then-
Okay, this one was addressed for you, and it's: most Rowlett citizens I've asked want the original Bayside vision to come to fruition. How do you plan to hold accountable those who made promises that were intentionally broken? So maybe you can address this question and whatever with Robert as well.
Well, I mean, it took us suing the developer to bring them to the table to negotiate, and when they changed, development partner in the fall of 17, we had meetings after meetings after meetings with Bayside and discussion after discussion to force their hand to start their construction on a timely manner. It took us issuing a pre-default letter in the summer to bring them to the table to present their new plan, and then it took us suing them in January of 2019 to bring them back to the table to negotiate a settlement agreement that we negotiated in early March. So we have a lot of leverage. We have firm commitments. We have agreements in place. The reason they did come to the table to negotiate the settlement agreement is because we have so much leverage. It is a public-private partnership. We've fulfilled our obligations under that public-private partnership, and we expect them to fulfill their obligations, and that's why we were able to bring suit. So when we currently are working with a new development partner, and we're under a 120-day closing period, and we will make sure that those agreements are just as airtight as the agreements we had with Bayside to ensure that this development is what we need and what our citizens deserve in the city of Rowlett.
Robert, anything?
Just like the citizens, I know nothing about this, and I am just wondering, are we able to actually get this developer to do what we want to do and also pay the $37 million? So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's all up to the council and all up to the mayor. Unfortunately, that 20 days will be after the election.
Tammy?
A little concerned about the insinuation there. So I've heard it a couple times of, not being transparent with the public. I've issued 3 different mayor spotlights on Bayside. We have a lot of social media disclosure and FAQ disclosure on Bayside. We had a very a comprehensive town hall meeting on Bayside. We have been very, very transparent about Bayside to the extent we can. My opponent actually posted on Facebook that if we even did have an agreement in a certain manner, and I was able to point him to that agreement that he approved.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I think we've gone back and forth both times now. Okay, all right, and I think, Robert, we're with you first, but this, along with economic development outside of Bayside, or maybe even thoughts on that, what tools do you think economic development needs to be successful? You sound like you weren't real excited about using TERS, though you were open to it, but what tools would you actually use to bring economic development to Rowlett?
I think we have to have an economic development association within the staff so that we can go out and have the good salesmen to go out and find people to bring into our community, into the North Shore and into some of the other stores on on 66, so that we can have more development and bring in more commercial taxes.
Outside of the economic development folks we already have at the city, is that what you're talking about? In addition?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Tammy?
Can you repeat the question, Cindy?
What tools do you think economic development needs to be successful?
So, it's interesting because we hear this question a lot, and yet we have over $1 billion of development coming into the city of Rowlett that's going to increase our tax base by $10 to $15 million annually. So I think we've been really, really successful with economic development. That's a double-edged sword. People don't want the community to change. They want to keep the small town feel, and yet they want the ability to have the restaurants and the retail and so on and so forth. So I think we have been incredibly successful with the limited resources we have. We don't have a big war chest. We don't have an economic development corporation. We do have incentives that we use. We do have a little bit of an incentive fund. And we have a policy in place for the types of businesses that we want to attract. And we will only provide incentives to those types of businesses that we want to attract. So that's job creation, and that's retail and restaurant.
Anything?
Just wondering, if you took Bayside out, how much of the $1 billion would be left?
Why do you want to take Bayside out?
Well, I'm just speculating that it may or may not happen.
I'm not going to take Bayside out. Bayside North is already developed, and Bayside South will get developed.
Okay. Well, Robert, that brings me to a question along that line under policy and legal that we have. What measures would you as the mayor take to resolve the lawsuits currently pending against the city as quickly as possible?
I don't know what the city and the legal and the lawyers have already done, but I still believe that we should be able to talk to them and resolve things without having to go to court. I mean, people are reasonable people. I'm a reasonable person, and I'm sure that if we sat down over a cup of coffee, we could probably make a lot of difference without having to go to court.
Okay. And you'd mentioned restoring Rowlett's reputation. That's
part of it.
Is that part of that? Can you expand on that a little bit, if you don't mind?
Well, the reputation is that until recently we haven't had lawsuits against us, I don't believe, or haven't heard of, but this is a bad situation, and the items referred to in those lawsuits are not a pleasurable item for City of Rowlett.
Tammy?
So I opened my book because I want to make sure I'm accurate on this. I'm very concerned about this because I believe this is a very negative campaign rhetoric to cast aspersions on the city for allegations, and they are allegations made against the city by employees that were involuntarily terminated. Please don't misunderstand me. These are very, very serious allegations. But we have looked into all of these allegations. We looked into these allegations when they occurred. We looked into these allegations when the lawsuits were filed. We are vehemently denying these allegations. And in fact, many of these have been dismissed by the court, including for Ms. Ball, the sexual harassment claim, and sexual hostile work environment, and the Whistleblower Act. Both have been dismissed. And for the Wilson claim, the quid pro quo sexual harassment and the Whistleblower Act have been dismissed. And, for my opponent to base his campaign on this idea that we have to restore Rowlett's reputation is very concerning to me. I am very pro and optimistic about where we're at and where we're going.
Thank you, Tammy. Do you want to say anything else?
Some of these lawsuits have not been resolved, and that's all I have to say.
Anything else, Tammy?
We filed an answer. Today was the deadline to file an answer to the lawsuits, and there's additional information in that answer, which gives a great deal of detail as to why we are vehemently denying these claims. So it's important that our public has seen one side of these, and anybody can file a lawsuit, and anybody can say anything in a lawsuit. That has to be decided in court, and our attorneys have advised us not to settle this lawsuit, and certainly not to have settlement over coffee.
Okay. Let's see, and I think
I think it's me.
I think it's you, yes, because I started with Robert. What is your position on the city charter? Do you propose making any amendments in this coming year? And if so, what changes would you suggest?
So I gave this some thought as a result of the question that was asked to the city council representatives. Charter review is very, very important. I've been on a charter review commission and obviously have been involved in other charter reviews as a part of city council. There's a couple things I'd like us to look at. It doesn't mean I support it or don't support it. It's just important to look at these things periodically. And one of them is I'd like us to look at the timing of elections. We currently have our local elections in May. There's some cities that are moving those elections to November. There's pros and cons of that, but I think it's something we've never looked at that I know of, and certainly in my last 6 years we've not looked at that issue. I would like us to look at that issue. Another one that I want us to look at is districting, and don't get all excited. I'm not for 7 districts in the city of Rowlett. I don't even know if I'm for less districts. But what I'd like us to look at is maybe we should have 4 districts because we have a natural break in our city into 4 quadrants. So maybe it's time to see if it makes sense to have specific districts, maybe 4, and then maybe 3 at-large positions, including the mayor. Just want to look at it, just want to explore it. It's just something that I think it's time. That's about 15,000 citizens per district, and a lot of those citizens don't know where to go to because we have such an at-large situation. So maybe we can serve our citizens better if we went down that path.
When's the next charter review?
The charter review has to be reviewed every 5 years. You can review it more frequently than that.
Well, I don't have any specific items that I've thought about putting in the charter, but I will have a look at that and see what I can tell you on Facebook.
Okay. Tammy, anything else?
No.
Okay. All right, and I think I'm starting with Robert this time. Name one specific policy or measure you are seeking to enact if elected or re-elected. You for elected.
Transparency within the city. I am very disappointed at the moment because there are so many things happening in the city that we feel as citizens are not transparent. We're not told about it. Yes, we have the #1 transparency, fiscal transparency, as far as the budget and what we spend, but I'm thinking there are a lot of items that the citizens don't know about. And I'll give you particularly Bayside.
Okay, Tammy, if you'd like to respond to that, then you can answer the question under a different time if you'd like to do that.
I think we're an incredibly transparent government. We have so many tools. We have, the weekly newsletter Friday at 5. We have the Mayor Spotlight. We have the TV show. We have social media. Anybody that contacts me via phone or email gets a response and gets a very timely response. That's true for all of our city council members. We have public hearings. We have public comments. We have town hall meetings. We do have our 5 transparency stars. We were the 4th city in the state of Texas to receive all 5 transparency stars. So I think we are an incredibly transparent community. If there's one thing initiative I'd like to accomplish is I'd like Rowlett to be known for a premier event. You have Grape Fest, you have the Wildflower Festival, you have these communities that are known for something. There's a lot of good things going on in Rowlett, but there's not one particular thing that someone would say, oh, that's what Rowlett is, and that's what I would like to see.
Okay. Do you have any comments?
#1 thing that I would like to see was we should wait until Bayside gets developed. I mean, if we have a huge lagoon down there, we have a fountain and we have trolleys, we have all sorts of facilities and features, we could come and make Rowlett a destination, and that's what I think we could do there.
Okay, Tammy, and then was that your answer as far as the one specific? I don't want you to miss, because you were
was.
responding to Robert.
It
Okay,
was.
great. Just want to make sure you had equal opportunity there.
But I have a lot more than one. But
But I just asked for one. And I'm sure if anybody that's here tonight, if you want to, I'm sure that both of our candidates will stay and answer any questions that we don't cover tonight. So is that good with y'all too? Okay. Go back to taxes really quick. What do you plan to do about the ever-rising property appraisals that correlate directly to increased property taxes? And I think that Tammy's first this time.
I don't know, but I'll be glad to address it.
Okay.
There are two caps out there. One is there's a 10% cap on an increase of appraised value, and then there's also an 8% cap on the cities that we talked about earlier that they're trying to lower to 2.5%. So, I mean, I'll go back to what is the reason for the high, the rapid rise in property taxes. It's really disconcerting when our school districts have to raise the property tax rate in order to fund their schools. So we have a situation in the City of Rowlett where we are benefiting from increased appraisal values, but at the same time, we are able to lower our actual tax rate over the last 2 years, and I tried to do it 3 years ago because we are benefiting from the increased appraised values. But our school districts are not only getting the benefit of those increased appraised values, but they're having to increase the actual tax rate to make up for the lack of state funding. So the answer absolutely has to be that the state has to step up and fund the school districts appropriately. The state of Texas is going to get an additional $2 billion in this budget in sales taxes. And they have a huge rainy day fund. Don't tell me that there's not adequate funding out there for school taxes that we can help offset some of this rapidly rising property taxes that are causing our citizens to be taxed out of their homes. One thing that's really, really important to understand is that we have not only a senior exemption and a disability exemption and a homestead exemption in the City of Rowlett, but we also have a senior tax freeze. We are one of 7 Dallas County cities that have a senior tax freeze. That's very important so that we can make sure that our seniors are not taxed out of their homes in these times of rising property taxes.
Well, the housing prices have increased enormously over the last few years, and correspondingly the taxes have gone up as well. It's not just the school district, it's also the state, and it's also the Dallas County district, and it's also Rowlett. But with these increases, what have we seen for all that extra money that the city has received? We got 2 cents per $100 back. What was the rest of the money spent on? That's what I want to know.
Tammy?
We got our first 2 bonds since 2002 that are finally funding capital infrastructure improvements that we desperately needed as a result of all the deferred maintenance and just the normal capital requirements in any kind of city. And we've gotten increased salaries to remain competitive in the marketplace. So I think we're spending our money very, very wisely.
Robert? Okay. And as we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and ask the question again since it came in separately. What tax cutting measures, if any, do you propose for the coming fiscal year? And Robert, I think you're first.
What tax cutting measures would we,
if any, do you propose for the coming fiscal year in the city budget, not state? I know that the state affects appraisals, etc., but for the city budget. Unfortunately,
I don't know because I am not on the city council. I'm not aware of the budget and what we need to cut or whatever. But yes, I would like to cut the taxes or the prices that the citizens have to do because I know there are people leaving Rowlett. I want to keep them here.
Tammy?
I don't know about specific tax cutting measures. We look at the budget very, very carefully, and the budget is a public document, so it's very available to you, Robert. I approved a 2-cent tax decrease this last year, 1 cent before that, and tried to do 1 cent before that, but actually that was voted down, including my opponent opposed that tax reduction 3 years ago. It is important that we continue to reduce our tax rate, but it's also important to understand that we have a very affordable community. Average household home value here is $200,000, and our average resident pays $1,500 in city taxes annually. That's much lower than many communities surrounding us that have a much lower tax rate, but because the value of the homes is much higher, they pay much more in city property taxes.
Robert, do you have any response?
My next door neighbor left because she sold her house. She was paying too much in taxes. And I've had several other friends also paying too much in taxes and gone to another neighboring community where it's not so high.
Okay, I think Tammy's first on this one. What specific skill or knowledge do you have that differentiates you from your opponent?
So I talked a little bit. I am a certified public accountant, have a lot of financial and operational expertise, incredible amount of experience, not only in city government, but throughout our community. I think the most important thing for a mayor is the leadership capabilities and the development of relationships. And I am very, very proud to say that I have developed incredible relationships throughout this community with the citizens across the board and with our community partners. And I build relationships. I don't burn bridges. I govern very inclusively. And that's incredibly important for a mayor to make sure that we are inclusive and we're, garnering all the information we need from all the sources. I don't have anybody blocked on Facebook. That's not true. I have one person blocked on Facebook, and that was for my own public safety. There's lots of people that criticize me. There's lots of people that disagree with me. Part of my job is making sure that I understand those people's position just as much as those people that agree with me. So I govern very openly and very inclusively, and that is very important.
Okay, Robert?
I built a travel agency up to $15 million. You do that by talking to people. You do that by doing what they want, selling them where they want to go. I also was involved in the Travel Leaders Organization. I was on the Travel Advisory Board. I met hundreds of people. I got all sorts of awards from all different people because I was able to talk to them, relate to them, and give them what they want. And that's what I need to do. I want to do from a 30,000-foot level, all right? I don't want to sit here and I don't have a degree in library or the parks and gardens or the anything else. I just want to do something from the top and look down. We pay these people who are the heads of the departments a lot of money. If I have to do it, we can get rid of them.
Tammy, do you have any response on that?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think I have to ask Robert next, but this question is really geared for Tammy. Do you mind if I go ahead and do her first?
Please.
Okay. What is your biggest achievement so far as mayor, and what is your biggest missed opportunity?
There's so many things. I think we've done so well over the last 6 years. The biggest achievement is managing the Bayside situation and hopefully, coming to this successful fruition. There was a lot of moving parts. I had to lead the city staff. I had to lead the city council. Had a lot of interaction with Bayside, a lot of interaction with the public after we came to the settlement agreement. So just managing through that situation, which the culmination came 1 month after my personal situations. So just being able to manage through that situation, I think, was my biggest success. I'm also very proud of the Veterans Program and also very proud of starting the Diversity and Inclusion Commission and the Rowlett Youth Advisory Council, and I could go on and on and on. Missed opportunities. I should have thought about this ahead of time. I'm sure there's many. I'm sure my opponent will come up with one. We all make mistakes. We all have regrets. I can't think of a huge one. There's probably lots of small ones. I wish we would. I'm serious. I wish we would have got that tax cut 3 years ago. I was leading that city council meeting, and we lost that tax cut 3 years ago. And I look back at that as one of the first city council meetings I ran as mayor pro tem. And should I have been able to effectuate that change more effectively?
My biggest achievement was while I was on the city council, unfortunately, was a tornado. It was a huge effort for Rowlett in all sorts of ways. We had to do so many things to make it better and bring the citizens back together. But I also think it was such a wonderful occasion because all the people came together. We had neighbors that didn't even know each other. But when they came together, we were picking up bricks and they were working together and doing things, and they became friends. And we have, as a result of this, so many people that have now are friends and got whole new relationships because of it. So while it was a terrible time, it was also a good time. So I would like to, and I made a lot of friends doing it.
I think that the whole town of Rowlett reacted to the tornado in just mind-numbing ways. You guys did a great job. City, citizens, volunteers. I was very proud to represent y'all at that point. That's all the questions we have. So we're going to give you a 2-minute close. And Robert, you go first because you let Tammy go first at the open.
Ladies first, I don't mind. Yes, and my name is Robert, and I would like to be the mayor for this city. I'm an easygoing type of person. I'm laid back. I'm Australian. I'm not going to rule over anybody. I want people to come to me. I want to be able to talk to you. I want to be able to see what you want done in this city. I'm not one here to say this is what are we going to do and this is what is best for you. I want you to tell me what is best for you. I want to create a family, a friendship. I want to be able to get people to come, more people to come to town hall meetings and particularly to City Hall and council meetings. It's important that we have your input in things. It's not just a matter of us having the meeting. Sometimes I've been on council and there's 2 or 3 people sitting in there and half of them are staff. So I want you to come to council meetings. I want you to be more interested in what's going on in this town because we're doing it for you. That's basic.
Thank you, Robert. Tim?
Thank you. I hope that over the last year and a half that I have earned your support as mayor. It's been a pleasure and an honor and, in my opinion, a duty to serve the community. And I think that serving as your mayor is the position that I can best effectuate my contribution to this great community. I believe that leadership is absolutely crucial. And I believe that having, support of your fellow city council members, support of your city staff, and relationships throughout the community are very, very important. And I believe I have built those relationships, and I believe that, you can't do anything in this position standalone, but when you do it in partnership with those around you, we can do great things for the city. I am very positive about where we are at. I am very positive about where we have been at, and I am very positive about where we are going. And I do not believe that we need to restore Rowlett's reputation. I think we have a great reputation, and I am very, very happy about where we are going. So I hope that you will support me as your next mayor for the next 3 years.
Thank you, Tammy. Michael, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Cindy. Thank you, candidates, for coming out tonight, and thank all of you for coming out tonight. I think they said they would stick around and answer questions, so we have a little bit of time left for that. And when does early voting start?
22nd.
Thank you. I meant to look it up and forgot. I had the timer.
22nd through the 30th, Election Day, the 4th, May 4th.
Right, May the 4th. It's Star Wars Day or something. That's what I've been told. I'm not a Star Wars fan, so. But thank y'all for coming, and I guess that's a wrap. Thank you again, Drew.
Thank you, Michael.